Welcome to another edition of our conversation with Senator Michael Moore. Senator Michael Moore, as I'm sure you all well know, is our state senator representing the 2nd Worcester District, comprising 8 communities.
Very good.
In the central part of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, containing about 170 some odd
You got 170,000 people.
170,000 people. And one of those 8 communities, as we well know, is the community of Shrewsbury, which we all know is substantially more important than the other 7. I can say that, but Senator Michael Moore probably can't. First thing we have to do to say to you, other than welcome Senator Moore, is congratulations on your re-election.
Oh, thank you.
You
Thanks.
are our state senator for an additional 2 years.
2 years.
Okay.
Yep.
4th, 5th?
So I just finished my 10th. I'll be finished my 10th year, so 5th term.
5th term. So
Yeah.
you're starting your
6th.
6th term.
Yeah.
It has been a long time, Michael.
Gone by quickly.
Huh?
Gone by very quickly.
I'm sure it has gone by quickly for you, but I mean, when we stop and think, my God, that was
Yeah.
that many years ago that we were trying to figure out where else we could get lawn signs and, you know, how many more postcards we had to send out, and where we were going to get all the stamps, and
Yeah.
how we were going to get Michael to go to all of these various events, and bingo, it happened. You've done a good job.
Thank you.
Really.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank
You're
you.
still enjoying it
Yeah.
after all this.
Oh, I'm sure like everyone, when it gets to be election time and you're constantly on the go.
Well, we do have to make people clear the fact you had no opposition this time, which
Yes.
is the first time you've ever run
That was nice.
unencumbered, as we say.
You know, and I will say the only thing I found different about this election was I didn't have to do the door knocking. You're still out at all the events. You're still going everywhere.
Oh God, you were at everything.
Yeah, I tried.
Son of a gun.
You know, it actually.
You used to kid with you. I think I kidded with you the last time we were doing a program, saying, you know, why are you wearing all these things? You have no opposition. And basically, you have to keep. One, you have to support a lot of other people who did have opposition.
Yeah, but you know, it's really the best way of finding out
What's going on?
what's going on for
Yeah.
people, what they're thinking.
Yeah.
You know, when you have to have a formal meeting, sit down, have them come to your office or whatever, a lot of times things can get lost.
Sure.
When you're out there just sitting around the table talking with people, you get it unfiltered.
Sitting around with a cup of coffee or a beer or one of those numerous numbers of breakfasts and lunches that you're doing all over the place. Every time I look someplace, you're at someplace else feeding a bunch of people, for God's sakes.
One
You
night-
could get your restaurateur. You could start a restaurant business.
One nice thing now that my daughter has a license is that she started to meet me at the gym at different occasions. She gets out of school, we're making appointments and all.
Oh, I forgot about that. You have a driver.
Yeah, she don't have a driver now. I was actually waiting to pick up my son off the bus today, and I'm sitting there doing some paperwork, and all of a sudden around the corner, for the first time ever, my little daughter pulls up in the car.
Oh my
I was like, wow, this is a first.
Son of a God.
Yeah.
To pick you up and your son up? Oh, no, you were already
She was
there.
just driving in.
She's just checking to see.
Yeah,
what
and I was waiting to pick. He called me at the last minute to.
Isn't it wonderful when they first get their license and all of a sudden, like, I can remember when Melissa, who's our oldest, got her license and was saying, oh my God, what hath God wrought, you know, a kid with a license and, you know, 2 tons of metal and all that sort of stuff. And then it was basically, Melissa, would you mind going down and picking up your brother who's at the junior high after school or something like that? Oh, Dad, I'd love to be helpful. Like, give me the car, okay? Then 2 hours later, the 2 of them would come in the house.
Well, it's actually funny. She's, and I don't know, maybe she's like other kids, but she's not that. She's not always the one that wants to drive.
Ah, okay.
So when we have to take her places, like yesterday, I actually had to take her for an interview at one of her colleges that she's going.
Oh my God, we're starting that.
Oh yeah, she actually got accepted to one over the weekend.
Where?
Quinnipiac.
Oh,
So
great school, actually.
yeah, so she got accepted down there. She wants to go for bioneurology. So
Bioneurology.
yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah.
God love her, I couldn't even spell it, for
Yeah.
Pete's sake.
Yeah, the first time she said it to me, I was like, what?
Hello?
Yeah. So,
How about English, math, political science?
yeah, no,
Don't do that
none
anymore.
of that.
Okay,
So,
okay.
So she went to Brandeis, and first thing, you want to drive? No, she's happy just sitting in the car being
I
driven.
love it, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
doesn't have that urge to have to be the chauffeur.
Doesn't, okay, all right. All right. Still there anyway,
Yeah.
okay? So, everything else is going well. You have been reelected. We're through, what is this called? The 2018 legislative session that is now, we're now doing this, I believe it's almost mid-December.
Yeah. Christmas is about a week and a half away.
And you probably haven't bought my Christmas present yet, have you?
It's actually in the mail.
It's
It's coming by drone.
coming by truck. It's probably an invitation to some other fundraiser you're having, if I know you, okay? When I get mail from Morris, ka-chink, 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 I can hear those coming for pizza.
Oh, we have the Christmas cards coming out soon.
Oh, good.
So those will be coming out.
All right, those are great. I'll look forward to your Christmas card. Okay. We usually do, every year we do, Virginia and I do this thing about, the best Christmas card of the year, and it's usually, all of our friends. It used to be their kids. Now it's their, our friends.
Grandchildren.
It's pictures of their grandchildren. Okay, with funny hats on and stuff like that. But, every year we see if we can find what's the best Christmas card of the year. Okay. Political Christmas cards don't have nothing what to do with it, okay? One sad note that we have to acknowledge, because we're doing this program December, whatever today is, December 12th, 13th, something like that, anyway. The tragedy that Worcester has suffered with the very untimely death of firefighter Chris Roy, who was a Shrewsbury resident.
Yes.
He lived
Yep.
had a house on Lake Street right here in beautiful downtown Shrewsbury. Just an absolute tragedy. 36-year-old fella.
Yep. Single
Always
father.
wanted to be a firefighter. Had been there for a couple of years and unfortunately didn't make it out of that six-family house that was, the pictures of it were horrendous, how this thing went up in flames, really and truly. And the support of the community has been phenomenal.
Yes.
Really and
Yep.
truly.
They've there's already a GoFundMe page that's been started. And everywhere you go, people are talking about it. I know the House. I think they adjourned their session the other day in honor of him, and we'll be adjourning the Senate session tomorrow. We're going in and speaking and recognizing him. So we'll be adjourning the session tomorrow.
Yeah.
And actually, hopefully tomorrow we will be. The Senate will be passing for the second time what's called the Crisis Intervention Bill legislation, which would allow police, fire, and EMS. And it was actually Monday after this weekend. I called the Senate President's office and I was like, "Look, we need this now. We've got Worcester firefighters who, for the third time, are going to be experiencing this. This would allow officers within the department to get trained in crisis counseling, so if an officer, again, police, fire, EMS, has any sort of issues dealing with a tragedy or things that they deal with on the job, that they have someone to turn to that can seek help for them."
And that is so tough because these folks, men and women now, they're such a family. I mean, they're literally living in this close, professional community as such. That man alive, when something like that happens, you always say, well, they all expect it, but, when it happens, it's a tragedy. And especially, God love the city of Worcester. This is the
Third time.
the third time this has happened, and they all happen in December.
Yep. They just I was going to say celebrated, but they didn't celebrate. They just had the anniversary recognition of John Davies the day before.
Of the warehouse fire, right,
Yeah.
which was 1999. God, I can remember following all of that.
Yeah.
And the enormous turnout and response to those horrible deaths there anyway. But God love Christopher Roy and his daughter and his parents, who are parts of our specific community here in Shrewsbury.
I guess this
The young kid was at Calvin Coolidge School, right by, not terribly far from here.
This is when you call an area a community, this is a nice part of being part of a community.
Yeah.
Because they will come together and they'll be there for support of the people that need it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right, on to other things. You're about to wrap up. The Senate is about to wrap up its
Session, yep.
Its session. It's here. Ends January 1st, December 31st.
December 31st.
31st. Okay.
Yep.
Go get down there with paper hats and
We actually have our, Monday we have our going away speeches for those who will not be returning.
oh, not coming back.
Yeah, so we have that Monday.
Okay. All right.
So we have informal
What's-
session
what-
tomorrow.
What's the numbers now? R's and D's.
well, there's-
Ours are down to 4.
No,
Okay.
I believe it's 40, excuse me, there are 33 Democrats, 33 or 34 Democrats,
Oh, and there are 7.
and there's either 7 or 6
Oh, okay.
Republicans. There was actually, it was 7 last year, and Senator Richard Ross, Republican from down the South Shore area, was defeated. So that's where I'm thinking it's back. That might be back down
Up
to
to
6.
6. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and that was a surprise. So
Yeah. Okay. All right. So with this adjournment, you're wrapping up whatever.
well,
Business.
tomorrow's is going to be adjournment. It's just going to be for the informal session. Then we have Monday will be a day that we allow, or the Senate allows people who are leaving to come in and give their goodbye speeches. Then I think we may have 1 or 2 more informal sessions.
I'm laughing about. I have lost, and I'm going to come now. I can tell you what I really think of you guys.
No, everyone's usually gracious.
It's like the Christmas parties that were so popular, and are now not as popular as they used to be, and it always was a secretary or 2 or somebody would decide, I've been waiting all year to tell you a few things. I said, okay, could we hold it till after tomorrow morning's several cups of coffee before you decide to tell us what you really think at this point? But there we are, okay? Other business. Big issue, you made the WISTA, W-I-S-T-A, or as the people when I call trying to pay a bill from someplace or get something changed
Worcester?
will say, Worcester. Are you from Worcester? I said, no, I am not. I'm from Worcester, W-I-S-T-A, and that totally, they do not have a sense of humor about any of that sort of stuff. But in today's, here I am picking up this morning's paper, the Worcester Telegram and Gazette, and there it is, Senator Moore featured during cybersecurity panel discussion held in Boston with all sorts of other folks who are involved in this whole aspect of cybersecurity.
And there was actually a resident from Shrewsbury that got me involved.
Linda Johnson.
Johnson. Yep.
Okay. All right. I don't know. I think I know Linda, but I love her for being involved. This, there was another aspect. We're going to talk a little bit about a bill that you were very forefront on, or in the forefront on dyslexia, and it was also a suggestion from some enthusiastic constituent of yours.
Oh, yes,
who was
Grafton,
looking who was looking in that distance. One of the reasons we're saying, why are you around all over the place talking to people? It's the old, who was the New York mayor whose best line used to be, "How am I doing?" Okay.
I don't know.
And that seems to be you more. How am I doing? You're going around everywhere, and you're talking to everybody. Good for you.
No,
All
no,
right.
thanks. Thanks. Again, this is where you think you've heard everything. You think everything's come to your attention. Then whether it's a constituent calling the office or it's you're out somewhere and someone
Find out it's a real
it's
big
like,
word.
really?
out there.
and you'll hear something that you don't really believe. You're like, nah, that can't be. And that was like the dyslexia thing. It's like, seriously?
We're going to talk about that in a minute, but tell me about this. You are now involved, you were appointed by the Senate President, I have to read it so I get it right. You're the newly established Senate Special Committee on Cybersecurity Readiness, okay? This, as we all know on a national level, as well as a local level, but just as much on a national level, about the whole issue is there anything, Senator Moore, is there anything like privacy anymore? I'm finding it extremely difficult to say there is something called privacy, but I'm not terribly sure.
If it is, it's very short-lived, and,
know,
and we're going to be trying to maintain it.
Silly aspects of it, and I kidded for years, is Virginia shops at the Stop and Shop right here on Route 9 in Shrewsbury. And she says, you know, the Stop and Shop knows exactly what I buy and the products that I buy and
what to
prices
market,
that I
yeah.
pay for them and the rest of it, because she uses that card, and when she puts it in, she gets the coupons, and she says the coupons are geared toward me, the type of dog food that we buy, the fact that Kevin drinks scotch and soda, okay, soda water, as we say in Boston, okay, and all of that sort of stuff. And I said, yeah, there's a big cave someplace that has all of this information. That's been going on for years, but it's now getting to the stage that it's dangerous, terribly dangerous, really and truly. Tell me about this committee, and more importantly, this panel that you're involved with, not only on the state level, but on a national level as well.
Yeah, well,
What are we trying to do about all this?
Well, basically, what we were trying to do at the beginning of this legislative session, so about this time 2 years ago, before the session started,
Yeah.
I met with the previous Senate President, and because of some of forums I'd gone to relative to where I was just last week on some other cybersecurity stuff, I came back and I suggested that we really needed to get a handle on where the state is as far as our preparedness.
Sure.
And at that point, I didn't realize that meant I was going to be the chair of the committee. So when the
Was this lots of volunteers stepped forward?
Yes.
Everybody took a step back?
so they asked.
You've been kind of involved in this stuff for a while, though.
Oh yeah, no, the public safety
You
stuff.
have
Yeah,
the whole public safety aspect of it. This is just
well, that's in this where I get
on
to.
a whole different level.
I was working with the national group,
Yeah.
so they asked me if I'd chair it, and I said yes. And it was really quite interesting. The moment we announced the committee, the different policy areas that were coming in, whether it was healthcare, whether it was banking, whether it was
Sure.
public safety. One of the first things we realized is that we got to try to really concentrate what the goal of this committee is, even from public entities, because we could, there's so many things that were involved, we could just be chasing our tail.
Sure.
So we really, after we had a few people come in and testify, we really were trying to determine, okay, how do we guarantee that anyone who's creating a business or in some sort of commercial aspect, or just wanting the responsibility of maintaining someone's personal data, they should have to assume some responsibility in making sure that we have some standards.
Right.
So
That it's secure.
secure. So, but the problem we were finding is, and everyone was telling us this, that the moment you create a standard, if we do it legislatively, it's going to be changed. It's going to be backdated, out of date by the time we get it done.
Sure.
So, the concept we looked at doing is doing like the Public Utilities Commission, and creating what would be called the Cybersecurity Control Review Board. This way, we would have representatives from, and this would be a gubernatorial appointments. You'd have representatives from banking, healthcare, whatever different policy areas,
Sure.
because each industry also had their own standards for cybersecurity, prevent hacking. And then there was also the NIST standard, which was passed federally. Then New York had some standards that they had passed. So what we're looking at is almost like creating a certification level, where if you're going to assume the responsibility of taking someone's personal data,
Sure.
you'd have to go before this board, and this board would basically set what the regulatory standard will be.
Okay.
You can exceed it,
Sure.
but you have to at least meet this, and that where it would be a commission or board, and they do it by regulation. If it needed to change in 2 months,
Sure.
we can change regulation very quickly. So this way, the commission
so
and the
you-
authority can
you're
evolve
doing
as
a kind of a generic statute.
yeah. We're
and
going
being
to pass legislation to
being
create
able
this
to do
board.
regulations
Right. Then we're going to
of
have the
that.
board the board would then be able to establish the regulation,
Right.
and the regulation would be able to evolve as the industries evolve.
Sure.
So this,
Sure.
because it takes.
And as these hackers continue to evolve just as well. you know,
Well, actually, another thing that we recommended in this is to mandate yearly or quarterly auditing. And when we say auditing, it's every expert that came in before us, most hackers access the information through human error. It's that employee who's been trained, but they get this email that looks so
real.
official that they click on it, hit that, and once they do, it's over. So what some companies have started doing is they've started doing internal audits. They have someone come in, or someone from the outside come in, who will send these, what the phishing emails, the fish.
Yeah.
So they'll send them.
PH fish. Right?
Yes. So they'll send them, and then they test the employees to see which ones.
They're catching.
Right. And it's not like a, for terminating an employee. It's for training purposes, so that we can try to get better standards in protecting the
Very,
information.
very interesting. Huh? This happened. It's funny. We were house down in Denison. Cape Cod Times on Sunday had a big article about Cape Cod Community College just got hit for $800,000 by somebody hacking into their one of the schools that they have there, and basically got into the whole financial thing and managed to somehow get $800,000 transferred from Cape Cod Community College through TD Bank, their bank, to somebody somewhere, really and truly. And they said that it was very interesting. They said that's exactly what happened, is that somebody saw an email, pressed the button, and said yes, and intriguingly, it was caught by whoever their IT people is within a day or two, but it was too late at that stage, and whoever it did was fast enough to kind of get this stuff. That's scary.
Look at Marriott that just came out, that that 500 million personal identities or information was just over the years. Yeah. What came out during the hearings also is that, and we didn't publicly boast about this, we actually had police departments that were victims of the ransomware.
Wow.
Where they actually paid the ransom.
Sure.
Just so, because they...
For folks that don't understand, is the people breaking into it and saying, we have got all of your
we've
information.
locked it down.
We will give it back to you for X number of dollars. That's scary.
Yeah, it really is, yeah.
Yeah.
So so a lot of this we want to develop, the industry standards. We also recommended that a new joint committee be established between the House and the Senate, so that the Senate can start to put together some expertise or some better knowledge of cybersecurity and the different things that we have to look at, because it's going to take a lot of updating different laws. We actually, even when I was gone last week for the forum I was at, I met with a group regarding drones. And
is that the group in D.C.?
In D.C. And this, I have legislation filed at the beginning of the last session regarding drones. And what we ran into is that we are very limited in what we can do for drone legislation. It's called federal preemption.
You're talking about the regulation of the use of drones?
The use of drones, the purchasing, the use of drones. There's actually federal guidance or regulation, so it's called federal preemption.
Apparently everybody who gets married now has to have a drone.
A drone picture. So we can't, based on what we're getting now, we're going to be working with this organization now to fine-tune the legislation for next session. We can't regulate that drones, we can't prohibit drones from flying certain areas because they're drones. But what we can do, we can say, based on you've got a piece of property, that if you go over that person's property, it's trespassing. But see, we can't regulate drones, but we can add it to the definition of trespassing.
That's interesting. Huh? Okay.
Yeah, and then there's going to be issue with registration.
This is more from a security point of view, rather than a safety point of view. It's with a whole bunch of people buying some one of these things at Walmart and flying it into the wall.
Well, there's some you could fly it over. You could fly it over the Quabbin Reservoir, which is a water supply. It's infrastructure, flying over airports.
Ooh.
So the federal preemption is even supposed to delegate, define what critical infrastructure is. And even as far as, just think about it, the camera system on these drones now are so strong You could have one hovering over your house, videotaping and watching everything you do in the house. So we can add it to the peeping Tom statutes.
Yeah, it's a public safety issue.
And then we also have to now, public safety, we have to establish certain standards so that we know what would be when a search warrant is needed and when it's not needed. So we have to look at that aspect of it also.
That's interesting. Or
Yeah.
also from police using drones as a basis for getting a search warrant. Very
Well, right,
interesting.
yeah.
Very
And even
interesting.
and then there's the justification. You have someone lost in the woods using it for
Sure.
search and rescue.
Yeah, yeah.
So the whole technology aspect of it really has tentacles everywhere when you start looking into it.
Absolutely fascinating. It is the brave new world that we allegedly live in, I guess. Huh?
Yeah.
Let's talk about something else. Dyslexia.
Yes.
A piece of legislation that you are very, very much involved with. Dyslexia, a neurological problem
Yep.
that affects the way people perceive, read, whatever. And your folks tell me that roughly 1 in 5 children in Massachusetts suffers from this
Yep.
disease.
And it affects 15 to 17% of children.
It's-
I mean, 5 to
It's
17%.
amazing. And there was very little legislation or
Yeah.
regulation
Requiring screening.
requiring screening and things through our Department of Education.
Yes.
And this was brought to your attention, I'm sure you probably knew about it anyway, but was at least focused you on by, again, another constituent that we talked about.
Well, actually,
Vice President Grafton.
I have no problem acknowledging the fact that I didn't realize it was covered under our special ed laws.
You would have we talked just briefly before the show,
Yeah.
saying there has to be there has to be something for counseling and
Yeah.
assistance.
I mean, I think I did not explain.
And there wasn't.
No, when I sat with her and we were talking about it, I'm like, wait, we used to talk about this when we were kids.
Yeah.
And that you just I think as the laws progressed, you just kind of assume
Right.
that certain illnesses or diagnoses are
Sure.
included in things,
Yeah.
and come to find out it wasn't. So that's really when you started informing other legislators,
amazing.
you all get that
amazing.
you got that little chuck like really.
All right. Keep going around to all those things in all of your 8 communities,
Yeah.
especially surgery, as we say. So what does this legislation do?
Well, it requires pre-screening now, so.
So the kids who will go in school will automatically be screened, or for determination?
The bill calls for the
made?
Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to consult with Early Ed, because we have the 2 different commissioners in the department, to establish guidelines to help school districts develop the screening procedures. So it's going to fall upon the local school district to work with early education, establish what their screening guidelines and procedures are, going to be trying to identify students who may have this diagnosis.
Okay. All right. But enough stats around to say that 20% of the kids in Massachusetts are suffering
Yeah.
from this problem,
Yeah.
or with this problem. I'm sorry.
And then the bill also this panel will be tasked to create steps to implement research-based recommendations on student screening, but also teacher preparation around the disabilities and dyslexia.
Right. It's really something. You know, it's funny, we were saying before the show, having reached a venerable late middle age, is that what I am? No, I'm old age at this stage. You know, when kids were having problems in school that were probably dyslexic, we just thought they were dumb kids, okay?
And this is
that
where
kind of came about awareness of it at your stage of going through school, in which they knew what it was. Okay?
Yeah, and this is where the IQ levels of these students are. There's
It's
no issue with
affected.
that.
Sure.
They have strong IQs.
In fact, they're acting out, depression, potential mental issues. Senator, it's been wonderful doing
Thank
this
you.
once more again. We're doing it in December. January, we're going to be back doing it again. Thank you for all you do for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and your community. Join us again the next time.
And Merry Christmas to everyone.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.